All right, happy Friday, everyone. Got my coffee and ready for another Ask Philip. This is for January 31st, 2025. Hope your new year is off to a great start. Already 1 month in. And this is usually when the New Year's resolutions all start crashing down, unless you have a sustainable approach and you're taking it step by step, like we do here. Anyway, we got a couple of questions today that are going to be fun to answer. One is about how do you know if you're really at maintenance? And then the other one is about how much protein is too much and is it going to cause kidney disease and all this other stuff related to protein that we'll get into. Before I do, a couple quick announcements. First of all, the 2025 podcast listener survey closes today. Today is the absolute last day to get in on this. We've had a great response rate. I think I've had, I want to say 40, 50, maybe more responses. It's similar to last year. And I really appreciate it. I have so much gratitude for anyone who took the time because it's fairly short, but it's not super short. So I get that it takes time to do these surveys. In case you missed my note, the if you take the survey, you can opt in to be a winner of getting a free month of access to Wits and Weights Physique University, which honestly, you could come in, you can get your free nutrition plan, you could download all my stuff, you could watch all the courses in a month and then cancel, never having paid a dime. Of course, I hope you find so much value there that you're going to want to stick around. And besides that, everyone who doesn't win is going to get a special surprise. I mentioned this week. So everyone's going to get something for participating. Okay, so to get to that, very simple. Go to witsandweights.com/survey. witsandweights.com/survey. Very simple. If you haven't taken it, take it today, and then I'm going to lock it down and start collating through the results. And then I plan to do at least an episode just on the results, but then there's going to be a lot of improvements this year based on what you're telling me you want to hear more of. I know there was one comment in there saying, "Hey, you should have a co-host. How would your wife like to host with you?" And I immediately thought that is never going to happen. It's never going to happen. But I definitely am up to doing some collaborative episodes with other podcasters, and I'm going to. I've got 4 or 5 scheduled already where it's going to be more of a meeting of equals. We're going to have some back and forth. I don't know how much banters are going to be, because sometimes people don't want that, but we're going to probably have fun with it and then drop like half the episode on each other's podcast just to make sure that you have a unique experience on each one. Take the survey, witsandweights.com/survey. All right. Speaking of the podcast, I always like to tell you or share what's happened this week so you know what's out that you can learn from. Monday, I released an episode about alcohol. So just to spoiler alert, the 4th macro is alcohol. We have proteins, fats, carbs, and then we have alcohol, which is very unique. And this is a pretty deep dive episode. It's only 20 minutes long, but I cover a lot in there about the effects of alcohol in a non-judgmental way, but just to kind of open your mind to things that aren't often talked about in the context of body composition and health. Wednesday's episode, I think, is pretty cool. I've heard a lot of great feedback from folks. It's about daily scale weight tracking, but more generally, it's about how we take frequent measurements and tracking, which are kind of useless on their own, and then smooth them out and trend them out over time to actually separate the signal from the noise. A very fundamental principle of how to know if what you're doing is working, right? As opposed to saying taking one scale weight or one lifting session or one whatever. And then the episode today that's out is a little bit different, a little bit off on a tangent from what I usually cover. It's autoimmune disorders, chronic illness, and it's how to manage them naturally, which is a little bit of a controversial topic. So, but my guest was super gracious. She's also a comedian, Heather Gray. She is a functional practitioner. So again, it gets in that area that I don't often get into because I have some skepticism, but she was really cool and has a lot of experience and personally has dealt with this. And she definitely is into lifting and eating right and, tracking and all that fun stuff. So check that one out today. Okay. So our questions today, I am recording it. Yes, I am. Okay. Our questions today in the Ask Philip thread, which goes up every other week, and you can throw in your questions to get them personally answered by me like I'm doing right now. The first one, hold on, my little thing's in the way. Okay. The first one is by John. John, thank you, man. I know you've put multiple questions in here, so appreciate it. So John asks, as I'm close to the end of my cut, I'd like to stay at maintenance for 4 to 6 weeks to hold this new body weight. Makes sense. I weigh myself daily. I use my weekly average weight to determine weight loss or gain. Okay, weekly average weight. All right, my man, go listen to Wednesday's episode. Um, Even if you're not using macro factor, and I feel like we've gone back and forth on this, and I don't remember. I feel like you're not using it, right? Because if you were, you wouldn't have to be using average weight. But it's cool. I'm not judging you on that. What I'm saying is that that app uses a 20-day exponential moving average, and you can do this in Excel, Microsoft Excel, or Google Sheets. There's a simple formula to make that happen. I would use that formula instead of a weekly, because a weekly is too short of a time frame to see true change in fat loss. And that's why you should listen to my Wednesday episode. I talk about that exact thing. So this is perfect. And then you said when you have someone eating maintenance, how much fluctuation of weight up or down is acceptable to be considered maintenance? And what difference in weekly average weight would you consider ate too much or too little? So great question. I wouldn't consider the weekly average weight. That was my point in my last statement. It's too short of a time frame to overreact. So if you're if you use macro factor, you've got the trend and you've also have your expenditure. So I like to look at the trend and you'll see that, okay, my scale weight has been popping up over my trend weight. It might start to tick up your trend weight because the moving average, right? If that starts to happen, around 3 pounds change is where I consider you're no longer at maintenance, so you're actually gaining or losing, depending on the direction. So, yeah, so I would use the trend weight and then 3 pounds, but it should be based on more of a 3-week average and not a 1-week average. I think that answers the question. What I'm getting at is if my weight hovers 0.3 to 0.5 pounds above or below the previous weight, would you consider that? Yeah, that's well within the norm. And again, 1 week is just too short of a time frame. Let me think here. And remember, some people's weight fluctuates a lot day to day. Like my weight tends to fluctuate about 1 to 3 pounds, usually, sometimes more. Bigger guys, like if you're 200 pounds or more, I've seen 3, 4 pounds, like constantly up and down. Really depends. So yeah, I would wait till it drifts enough to know that you're there. Honestly, when you're done with a cut, I would prioritize recovery at that point, which means I would err on the side of being a little bit over rather than under. So if it starts to tick up a little bit, I'm like, that's cool. You know what that means? That means my body's getting all the resources and nutrients it needs and enough to even start gaining weight, right? And then you can level off, because what'll probably happen is your expenditures are going to start coming up, right? Assuming everything else stays equal, your expenditure is going to start coming up and you're going to have to eat more anyway. So you kind of have to get ahead of it. Yeah, that's my answer. Okay. Hope that answers it for you, John. The next question is a good one. It's a good one. Deanna, hey, Phil, sorry. The reason I hesitated on that, I prefer Philip. No judgment on you. A lot of people don't know that, but I'm actually, now that I have a chance to put it on recording for anybody who knows me, Philip, cool. You didn't know that. It's all good. My professor, who is formerly a doctor, but now teaches science courses, anatomy and physiology, microbiology, etc. Oh boy. Okay. We're already set. I could think of my daughters taking logic and they're like, argument by authority coming, right? Like, hold on, let's see. Mentioned in class the other day that drinking protein shakes and drinks can be really harmful to your kidneys. She talks about her brother-in-law and how she wouldn't be surprised if he ends up on dialysis when he's older. Okay, man, you know what? You got to drop this class. Like this guy is a yokel. I mean, maybe he and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. are friends. I don't know. And I'm sorry if that came across as political, because I don't mean it to be, but the evidence is completely clear. There's a wide range of protein you can consume that if you are healthy, if you don't already have kidney issues, you can consume a huge amount of protein. And we're talking hundreds of grams of protein before it becomes a problem. And I know you and probably most people watching and listening sometimes struggle to get enough protein. You're nowhere near that range. So if you're in the 1 gram per pound or 1.5, even 2 grams per pound, you're fine. You're fine. And Fairlife Power Core, by the way, I like Fairlife because it's basically milk. It's just milk from a cow they've filtered out the lactose and some of the other sugars, made it very concentrated in terms of protein. And it's funny you mention that because I like the Fairlife chocolate milk. I'm in a building phase now, so I get stuff that has even more calories if I can. And I was like, what would it take to drink just that all day? And what would the macros look like? And I calculated it. And for me, it would be about 280 grams of protein. And it would be like 100 grams of fat. The fat was reasonable. And then it would be like 200 grams of carbs. So basically, the protein and carbs are a little bit flipped. Like I would rather have 100 grams less carbs, protein, and 100 grams more carbs. But the point is, you said the macros are great. I agree. Like you could literally just drink that all day and meet your macros. You would be deficient in lots of other things, and I would not recommend that at all. I'm just making a point. So you said, should I be doing something else, or do you think I'm okay? What do you think the difference between protein drinks and consuming animals for protein? Okay, that's a good one too. There's different types of protein drinks. There's whey protein, and then there's casein. So that's from milk. Then there's animal-based proteins like pea and rice. And by the way, if everybody heard about that article recently about heavy metals in protein, who was it? Somebody put out a good video on that said the main concern is the pea-based protein, ironically, right? The natural one from plants, because of the soil. But if you get a good quality company, it's not really a concern. Anyway, I don't want to go off on that tangent. I'm not worried about that at all, unless you're consuming just gobs and gobs and gobs of that stuff, which you shouldn't do for anything. But as for like, if you take whey protein, whey is a fantastic amino acid profile, right? Very high in leucine, it's complete in terms of amino acids. And so are animal proteins. So there's not much of a difference. The differences are in some things other than the protein, nutrients, for example, right? Satiety, digestibility, flavor, right? You could imagine so many things. So I do consider protein processed, but it's like a minimally processed thing that a lot of people need when you're trying to get 150 or 200 grams of protein and you've got, 120 from animal sources and you just want another 30 grams of protein. Drink a Fairlife Core. Fine, do it. It's fine. I have at least one protein shake a day for that very reason. It's also very highly digestible. So it's great pre-post workout. It's great when you're trying to get more calories because it's drinkable. It's, pre-digested. So you're going to learn from me, Deanna, that, no food is good or bad. No food's off limit. And protein is not going to harm your kidneys unless you already have an issue or you're consuming some toxic level that none of us are going to be eating. All right. So there you go. I hope that answers the question. There's some follow-ups here. Yeah. Okay. So there we go. If you guys want me to answer your question in the future, come into the Wits and Weights Facebook group and post away. You could post anytime. We just hit 900 members, it looks like, just today, which is awesome. And have a fantastic weekend. Keep lifting, keep using what's up here. Think for yourself, get to work, make it happen, reach out for help, and you'll be good. We'll talk soon.